Have you ever felt like the world has taken something valuable from you? As if opportunities, relationships, or even your peace slipped through your fingers. This is something we all face, but here's the truth that few really understand. God has the power to restore everything. Yes, everything that was taken from you. Maybe you don't see it now, but a miracle is being prepared in your life, and that's what we're going to talk about today. In this video, you will discover how God works in surprising ways to return what seemed lost. But there's a secret. To receive this restoration, you need to understand His timing, trust His promises, and open your heart to transformation. Believe me, what He has for you is greater than any loss you may have experienced. So, stay until the end, because what I'm about to show you may completely change the way you see your losses and your future. Don't leave before hearing this message, because what you will learn today might be the key to your victory. And if this message has already touched your heart in some way, help our channel grow and spread this word. Subscribe now, leave your like, and share this video so more people can be blessed. And if you need prayer, leave your request in the comments. We will be praying for each one of you. Lost opportunities and pain. Have you ever felt that tightness in your chest when an opportunity slips through your hands? Maybe a relationship that ended earlier than expected, or a job that seemed like your dream chance but didn't work out. This feeling of loss is common, and we all go through it at some point in life. But the great truth is that the pain of loss never comes without a purpose. God has promises that go far beyond what you lost, and He can restore everything in a surprising way. What you lost may seem impossible to recover right now. However, God's promise for your life is clear. What was taken can be returned in an even greater and better form. Think of the moments when you thought everything was lost, but somehow something better happened soon after. That is divine restoration. God restores everything, and He often does it in ways you can't even imagine. There are countless stories that prove this truth. Remember Job? He lost everything, family, wealth, health, but by trusting God, he got everything back, double. Job's pain was deep, but the miracle of restoration in his life was even greater. This proves that even in the midst of the greatest losses, there is a promise that God will restore everything abundantly. But this restoration doesn't only happen externally. It begins within you. Pain has a purpose. When you feel like something has been taken from you, it's an opportunity to reconnect with God and seek understanding. The path to restoration begins when you hand over your losses to Him and trust that He is in control. Sometimes, pain is the first step towards rebuilding your life. A momentary loss can be the beginning of a profound spiritual renewal. While you go through this period of pain, it's natural to wonder why this is happening. But remember, God works in times and ways that we can't immediately understand. Every opportunity that seems lost is actually an open door to an even greater spiritual return. That's the key. Trust in God and believe that, in due time, He will restore what was lost. And if you're wondering how to act during this time, start with small steps. A practical example is to dedicate more time to reflect and pray, asking God to show you the way. Sometimes, the answer comes in subtle ways, through a friend's advice or a sense of peace you couldn't find before. Small signs of restoration begin to appear. Now that you understand that the pain of loss can be the beginning of something greater, the next step is to trust in this divine promise of restoration. After all, God never takes something without preparing something better. With this, We can move forward to understand how this promise of restoration is exemplified in the Scriptures. God's promise of restoration. God's promise of restoration is not just a vague concept or a distant hope. It is real and tangible, just as it was in the lives of many who trusted His plan. One of the greatest examples we have is the story of Job, who lost absolutely everything but received double back. Divine restoration doesn't just return what was lost, it brings something even greater, something beyond our understanding. Have you ever stopped to think about how abundantly God acts in restoration? He doesn't just give back what was lost, He transforms what you had into something superior. Job's story teaches us exactly that. Even when everything seems to be at the end, God is working on something great for your future. The miracle of restoration is precisely this ability to turn pain and loss into even greater victories. And the most interesting thing about divine restoration is that it doesn't happen all at once, but in layers. When God promises to restore your life, He starts from the inside out. Your mind, your heart, and your faith are renewed, creating a solid foundation for everything He plans for you to begin manifesting. That's why trusting in God's timing and plan is so essential during trials. Faith is the key to accessing this promise. In the midst of difficulties, it is your trust in God that allows you to see beyond the circumstances and believe that restoration is coming. And just like Job, when you trust, God delivers much more than expected. He not only restores your losses but transforms every part of your life into a testimony of faith and hope. If you are facing a moment of loss or pain right now, remember this promise. God restores everything, and He does it completely, going beyond your expectations. All you need to do is trust Him, even if everything seems uncertain at the moment. It's not easy, but it's in this trust that true victory happens. Faith and hope in what God will do are what sustain you during the hardest moments. So, what is the next step for you? The first is to align yourself with what God has for your life. A practical example is to start meditating on His promises daily. Reading passages like Job's story or the Psalms can strengthen your faith. This renews your hope and gives you clarity to understand that restoration is on its way, even if it's not visible yet. Now that you understand that God's promise of restoration is a reality, we can explore how you can align yourself with this promise and prepare your heart for what is to come. Path to restoration. The path to divine restoration begins with a fundamental decision: trusting in God's timing. Often, when we face losses, our first reaction is to try to solve everything on our own, but true restoration happens when you hand everything over to Him. It takes faith and patience to align your heart with divine will. This doesn't mean following rigid rules or magical formulas, but understanding that God is always working, even if you can't see it now. Have you noticed how unpredictable life can be? One day everything seems to be in place, and the next, everything can change. In these moments, it's easy to feel lost, but it's precisely at this point that the path to restoration begins. The first step is to stop fighting alone. Instead of trying to control every detail, trust that God has a bigger plan. This path involves total surrender, where you let go of your worries and start believing that He is preparing something greater. In daily life, this means letting go of trying to understand everything. When things seem senseless, it's your faith that guides you. And for this trust to grow, it is essential to nurture your spirituality. Set aside daily time to pray and meditate, seeking to connect with God's voice. A practical example can be reading books that strengthen your faith, like The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, or even finding inspiration in biblical stories of overcoming, such as Joseph, who waited years to see his purpose fulfilled. The walk to restoration also involves looking within yourself. When you begin to align your desires with what God has for you, the reconstruction process is already underway. Often, God uses moments of silence and waiting to prepare something grand. Patience in this process is your greatest ally. It is during this period that He molds your character, strengthens your faith, and prepares you to receive the spiritual return you have been waiting for. It may seem like the journey is long and difficult, but every step is worth it. God's restoration is not quick, but it is deep. Each moment of waiting is an opportunity for you to grow and align yourself even more with what He desires for your life. Remember, God restores everything at the right time. Just like a plant that needs time to grow and bloom, your life also needs this daily care. And as you walk, stay firm in hope. Faith and hope are the foundations that sustain the walk toward complete restoration. Don't get discouraged if things don't happen immediately. What you don't see now, God is already preparing for the future. He always keeps His promises, and at the right time, you will see the miracle of restoration manifest in your life. Now that you understand the path to restoration, let's explore how faith and trust in God can be tested during trials, revealing new opportunities for spiritual growth. Faith and trust during trials. It's easy to trust God when everything is going well, isn't it? The true test of faith, however, happens when we face difficulties. It is in the darkest moments that your trust in the divine plan is really tested. Job is a clear example of this. He lost everything but never stopped trusting God. His faith was tested to the limit, and it was precisely this trust that paved the way for complete and abundant restoration. When life seems to be falling apart around you, it's natural to feel fear or insecurity. However, these difficult moments are disguised opportunities. The test you face today may be the starting point for a much greater victory tomorrow. It's important to remember that, in the midst of trials, God is with you, watching your reaction and preparing something great. Victory over losses begins the moment you choose to trust, even without fully understanding what's happening. In practice, this means not giving up, even when everything seems lost. When you encounter challenges that seem impossible to overcome, that's when your faith is strengthened. One way to nurture this trust is through constant prayer and surrounding yourself with uplifting words. Inspirational readings, like the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, can help you see beyond difficulties and keep hope alive. Divine restoration is the result of this perseverance. Trusting during trials also involves a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing every challenge as an obstacle, view it as an opportunity for spiritual growth. God uses these moments to refine your character and prepare the ground for the blessings to come. When you accept this, difficulties stop being just a burden and become necessary steps on the path to the life reconstruction He has already planned. Job's story teaches us that true faith is not in the absence of problems, but in unwavering trust in God, even in the midst of the storm. The more you trust, the more you grow. And this growth is essential to receiving the miracle of restoration. God restores everything, but He does it completely, transforming both the external and your interior. And perhaps you're wondering, how to trust when everything seems lost? Start with small acts of faith. For example, instead of focusing on the problem, thank God for being by your side, guiding every step. A grateful heart opens doors to spiritual renewal and helps keep hope alive. And over time, you'll see that even in the greatest adversities, God is acting powerfully. Now that you've understood the power of faith and trust during trials, let's explore how perseverance in difficulties can shape your path to a greater victory. Perseverance in difficulties. Perseverance is the strength that keeps you standing when circumstances say otherwise. When you face difficulties, the difference between winning and giving up is in your ability to keep walking. God never promised life would be easy, but He guaranteed He would be by your side in every challenge. And it's precisely this perseverance that He uses to mold you, strengthen you, and prepare you for greater victories. In everyday struggles, it's common to feel tired, discouraged, or even want to give up. However, every time you get back up after a fall, you are closer to divine restoration. Imagine a tree that, with each storm, sinks its roots even deeper. So is the life of one who perseveres. With each obstacle overcome, you become stronger and more prepared for the plans God has for you. Perseverance is not just about keeping trying. It's trusting that, even when everything seems to be going wrong, God is in control. A practical example of perseverance is not abandoning your personal projects or dreams when difficulties arise. If you're building something, like a business, for example, don't let the initial challenges extinguish your vision. Instead, strengthen your faith, knowing that God restores everything and that He will guide you in the right direction. Remember that in the Scriptures, all the great men and women of faith had to persevere amid adversities. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, unjustly imprisoned, but never gave up on the purpose God had for him. The result? He was placed in a position of honor and restoration. Just like Joseph, you too can turn your moments of difficulties into stepping stones for victory. And how do you keep this perseverance alive in your daily life? Create a routine of faith. Start each morning seeking God in prayer and reading His promises. Strengthen your mind and spirit so that, when challenges come, you are prepared. A simple example would be to read biblical passages like Romans 5 verses 3 to 4, which speaks of the importance of persevering through tribulations, as they produce character and hope. Persevering also means learning to be patient. Sometimes God allows us to go through a longer process so that we are ready to receive the blessings He has already prepared. It may seem difficult to wait, but every moment of difficulty is an opportunity to draw closer to God, develop your faith, and be ready for the miracle of restoration that is coming. Now that you understand the importance of persevering, let's move on to one of the essential keys to restoration: forgiveness and release, which unlock God's blessings in your life. Forgiveness and release. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful keys to restoration and spiritual release. When you hold on to resentment or hurt, it's like carrying an invisible weight that keeps you from moving forward. God calls us to forgive, not because people deserve it, but because forgiveness is the door that opens blessings in your life. By forgiving, you free yourself from the emotional prison that prevents you from experiencing divine restoration. Often, forgiveness is misunderstood. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting what happened or returning to situations that harmed you. Forgiving is letting go, releasing the emotional weight that hinders your spiritual growth. A practical example could be that friend or relative who hurt you deeply. Instead of nurturing the pain, choose to forgive, understanding that forgiveness is for your own benefit. This choice opens the way for the spiritual return that God wants to bring into your life. It's important to remember that forgiveness is a process. Sometimes, it doesn't happen all at once, but it starts with small daily decisions to leave the hurt behind. However, each step in this process brings greater release. And when you are free, your soul opens up to receive God's promises. He is ready to restore everything that was taken from you. But restoration only happens when your heart is free to receive. Unforgiveness blocks the blessings God has reserved. It's like building a wall around your heart, preventing the miracle of restoration from manifesting. When you choose to forgive, that wall falls, and spiritual renewal begins. So if you've been struggling to forgive, remember that this act is not a weakness but one of the greatest acts of faith you can perform. By forgiving, you demonstrate trust in God's plan and open space for victory over losses. If you're wondering how to start practicing forgiveness, a simple way is to pray for those who hurt you. This may seem difficult at first, but as you do it, your heart begins to release. Another practice is to reflect on the forgiveness you have already received from God. Remembering that He forgives you daily helps you understand that forgiveness is a gift you can also give. Now that you understand the power of forgiveness, we can move on to understand how gratitude and patience are fundamental to complete restoration. Gratitude and patience. Gratitude is a powerful tool that transforms your perspective amid losses. When you are grateful, even in the hardest moments, something changes inside you. Instead of focusing on what was lost, gratitude makes you realize what still remains. And this simple act of thanking opens doors to spiritual renewal. God restores everything, but He also values a heart that recognizes His blessings, even amid difficulties. It may be that right now you feel there is little to be grateful for, but there is always something. Think about the simple fact of being alive, of having health, or of having people around you. When you choose to focus on the small blessings, your heart begins to change. This generates a positive cycle. The more you give thanks, the more you receive. And this attitude of gratitude prepares the ground for spiritual return and God's promises to manifest in a grand way in your life. Patience, on the other hand, goes hand in hand with gratitude. Often, God's plan unfolds in a time we don't understand. It's easy to want things to happen quickly, but patience is an exercise in trust. Trusting in God's timing is accepting that, while you wait, He is working in your favor. Just as a tree takes time to bear fruit, the restoration He has for you is being prepared in the smallest details. If you feel anxious or impatient, a practice that can help is dedicating a moment of your day to meditate on God's promises. Read biblical stories like Abraham's, who waited years to see God's promises fulfilled, but in the end, he was abundantly blessed. This practice strengthens your faith and reminds you that even while waiting, God is acting. He hasn't forgotten you. Gratitude and patience are like seeds planted in fertile soil. When you cultivate them, you are preparing the way for the miracle of restoration. As your heart aligns with these two virtues, you begin to realize that the pain of waiting is not in vain. God restores everything, and He does it at the right time, but in the meantime, He wants to see a grateful and patient heart. Now that you understand the importance of gratitude and patience, let's explore how these feelings can transform your walk of faith, preparing you for the great things God has in store. Now that you understand the power that God has to restore everything that was taken from you, the question is, are you ready to allow Him to act in your life? Restoration begins with your willingness to trust Him, even when things seem difficult. Ask yourself, am I truly prepared to hand over my pain and losses to God and trust His plan? The knowledge you gain today could be the turning point in your life, but it will only have value if you put it into practice. What will you do from now on to allow God to restore everything in your life? I want you to reflect on this, and if this content has helped you in any way, leave a comment thanking or make your prayer request. We will be here to pray for you and support you on your journey. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any more messages that can continue transforming your life. And remember, God's restoration is real, and it's on the way. Don't give up now.